Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, September 16th, 2024 at 7 p.m. and we are in regular session tonight. I'd like to start by acknowledging that here in Athens County, we live and work on land initially settled and developed by earlier people, particularly the Shawnee and the Osage, and those identified through cultures commonly known as the Adena, Hopewell, and Fort Ancient. This acknowledgement reminds us of the importance of honoring history, people, and the planet as we work to improve our city's legacy. Our first order of business is to establish quorum. We have 6 of 7 council members present tonight, and we have quorum. The next item of business is to appoint our acting clerk. For those concerned, Ms. Debbie Walker is fine, and she has a well-deserved break tonight with her grandchildren. May I have a motion to appoint the clerk, please?
Mr. President, I would move that we appoint Scott Thompson as acting clerk for this evening's meeting.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Scott Thompson as acting clerk. Is there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
That's
Mr.
quick.
Thompson, congratulations, you are our acting clerk tonight. Next order of business is the disposition of minutes. May I have a motion to approve the regular session of City Council held on August 19th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second for the August 19th minutes. Are there any questions or comments on this document? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The minutes have been approved. We also have the minutes from the regular session of City Council held on September 3rd, 2024. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you for that motion and second. Any comments or questions on the September 3rd minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Those minutes are approved. Next, we have reports. We have communications. Do any city council members have communications they'd like to share? Yes, Member Spelness.
Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to talk about a little bit. The Athens had a cleanup day. I believe that was August 29th. And there was a number of us who came. It was Jane Forrest Redfern, who is in charge of the Solid Waste District, and myself and several people from the Zero Waste group from Rural Action. And there were a few giant dumpsters, and people who had some issues with code, complying with code, could bring their junk and their recyclables. And I'm happy to report that we collected about 5,000 pounds of garbage. It's not enough, but it was a good way to go. And there was also about a half a truck of scrap metal. So that was a very nice turnout. I was there for a couple of hours collecting junk, and it was a hot day, but those much younger than I am stayed for a lot longer. So I was grateful to them, and they did a great job. And so we didn't help everybody, but there were probably 5 to 10 families who took advantage of that option, and I think it's a nice step in the right direction. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I need to pause communications here just for a minute. This is where I'm lacking the clerk of council who would have been elbowing me as I went through our regular process. Law Director, is it okay if we go back and do the public hearing on the agenda?
Yes, I was just getting ready to.
Thank you very much. I apologize. We should have started this evening with a public hearing. And I believe is Mr. Nathan Simmons here tonight? Yeah. Okay, great. So this is a public hearing on the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant, particularly the Critical Infrastructure Program. We passed an ordinance earlier this spring in order to enter into this program for the Theater Lane and Columbus Road lift stations. But I believe Mr. Simons from the HAPCAP is going to talk to us a little bit more.
Sure.
Okay, great. Please come forward.
Okay, yeah. Good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Nathan Simons, Community Development Coordinator with Hocking Athens Perry Community Action, and also administrator here for the City of Athens. We also do Athens County, Hocking County, and Perry County. So here to talk about a application that we're going to put in for the City of Athens to do sewer infrastructure improvements on some lift stations. on Columbus Road and Theater Lane. So the Columbus Road lift station is near some storage units by Goodwill, and the Theater Lane is down by the in-town body shop, down past the there's the Honda dealership. So anyway, it's a $500,000 grant that we're applying for. So this would be a round 2. So I guess I should back up and state that this is for program year 24 CDBG. Total of $500,000 available. We're looking to apply for a second round of funding. The first round of applications went in June, mid-June, June 12th. So we're hoping that there will be remaining funding for the program so we can apply for a second round here later this fall. Still don't have details as far as if that will happen. The state is still reviewing applications and making awards. So really the second round is dependent on funding being available and remaining after the first round. So fingers crossed there. And as soon as they release that information, then they'll establish a deadline for the second round of funding that we will apply for on behalf of the city. And we're going to pursue the full $500,000 request. And if I recall, the project is maybe pushing about $2 million for the total project. So this will be kind of a drop in the bucket scenario, but it will help limit the responsibility, the financial responsibility for the city, take some of the burden off of them for the cost. So that's kind of a rundown on it. I would be happy to answer any questions for the public comments. So that's kind of the point of the public hearing. We just like to let folks know what it is, where it is, and if they have any questions or concerns.
Council members, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think until I was on city council, I had never heard of a lift station. I had no idea what it was. So I'm guessing that perhaps some of the students and people who are normally don't come might not know what a lift station is or what we would be using it for. And since it's a public hearing, that might be helpful.
Okay, sure. So I'll be the first to say I'm not an engineer, so I could get this a little off. But generally, so a lift station it's an important part of the sewer system. So there's different grade for sewers and due to elevation, and of course there's solids and all that in the sewer system. And the lift station helps bring those up and keep them moving through the system and raise them through various elevations through a series of pumps and things like that within manholes. Yep.
So essentially that would provide the infrastructure for additional housing and development in that area.
Yes, absolutely. So it improves capacity, increases capacity, flow, things of that nature, and would improve development. Yep, absolutely.
Any questions for Mr. Simons? So to the audience, this is a public hearing for this. We'd like to receive ideas on what the community thinks would be appropriate. Obviously, we have professionals who make their recommendations, and the city administration is very involved. And that is what the proposal for this round 2 funding is. So this is we've already had 2 public hearings on that round 1 application, but this would be for the second round, as Mr. Simons indicated. Is there anyone from the community who would like to comment on the CDBG item under discussion? Yes, please come to the podium and tell us your name and your address and whether you represent any groups and whatever your comments are.
My name is Dan Imhoff. I live at 19 Townsend Place, Athens, Ohio 45701. And she asked the question, is this for an increase in capacity? I was wondering, are there existing lift stations there now? And if it's an increase in capacity, could you give us a percentage over and above what is available now?
Excellent questions. I might ask to see if the city administration has any information there. Our service safety director is not here tonight. He might be the one with the most information. We do know that there's a lot of development that's already happened on Columbus Road. We have a new hospital. So improving that infrastructure is certainly important to the city. But Mayor, do you want to respond to that?
Sure, and I can. I mean, it does open up opportunities for further development out in the Columbus Road corridor. Again, as President of Council mentioned, we do now have this new 4-story hospital that's there that is going to certainly increase the I hate using the word for demand when it comes to sewage because that's being given away. But you know what I mean? That level of capacity, that'll be important. We are seeing a lot of interest in some vacant lots on Columbus Road as well. And I think some of that is due to the new hospital being built. It also allows for some potential future opportunities if there were to be annexation in that direction. If you look at the city's comprehensive plan, or 2040, Vision 2040, we do speak to the growth of the city, mostly growing west, northwest, southwest, as opposed to east. There's not a lot more that we can grow out east because you're growing further into the floodplain as it exists, and that's not necessarily a smart strategic move for a community. So this gives us more opportunities in the future when it comes to our capacity to move sewage through that particular corridor.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions from the public on the CDBG item? Any additional comments from council members or city administration? Anything else to add?
On this topic, just that this is a critical infrastructure grant that we're applying for, and we've done this in the past. I believe we did it for Kimes Reservoir. We certainly have done it for the improvements down at the wastewater treatment plant to where we applied for critical infrastructure. So it has to go to some critical infrastructure like we're talking about, whether it's sewer or water. Those are very appropriate applications under this particular application, as opposed to what you're familiar with already and becoming more and more familiar, and that's the allocation. Allocation, $150,000 over a 2-year period of time, and we typically put those towards sidewalk improvements, new sidewalks, lighting, things of that nature within a designated census tract, because that's the other thing that's important to keep in mind, is that you have to follow the guidelines under CDBG to be able to use this money effectively for, again, whether it's pedestrian passageways, or in this case with critical infrastructure for sewer improvements.
Excellent. And I'll just add to sort of also answer your question, is that there are currently 2 public lift stations in the Columbus Road corridor, and 1 private lift station, which really should be a public station, but we're working through that. And we've already allocated funds from the city for these upgrades, and that really helps the CDBG grant be more competitive in terms when you have matching funds and you've already allocated money to that. So we're very hopeful for the second round as well. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. I will now close the slightly belated public hearing, and we will go back to communications from council members. Member McCary.
Thank you, President Crowell. I would like to inform the public that in 1981, the United Nations established the International Day of Peace, which Ohio University will be observing this Saturday, September 21st. The Division of Diversity and Inclusion is leading a committee of Make Respect Visible Week activities, and that will culminate with the September 21st event in Schoonover, room 145 at 11:30 a.m., concluding at 2:30 p.m. And you can find additional information at ohio.edu/respect. We encourage all members of the public to attend this free event and to commemorate the importance of peace and respect across differences in our community.
Thank you, Member McCary. Other council members? Other elected officials? Mayor, anything to add for communications?
I do, President Crowell, and this is kind of fitting that it's kind of on the comments that Councilmember McCary just made about, peace and being civil with each other. I was in Springfield, Ohio, earlier today. I was in a meeting that the meeting consisted of Dayton Mayor Jeffrey Mims was there, Dublin Mayor Chris Ambrose Grooms was there, Cincinnati Mayor Aftab Purval was there, the Akron Mayor Shamus Melik Toledo Mayor Wade Kapsakavich. We also had the former Governor Bob Taft that was in this meeting, along with the Mayor Rue of Springfield and the City Manager of Springfield. And the meeting was really coming together in solidarity with everything that Springfield is having to manage at this point in time. And to that point, and to what Member McCary was just talking about, you know, words from anybody, especially someone who has some level of power, is powerful. It can also be divisive and it can be dangerous. And recognizing the number of threats that the city of Springfield has been enduring lately, to include multiple threats at the schools, to where the schools are having to vacate and shut down, only to reopen again, is truly disturbing, and as it should be for all of you. It certainly is for me. And if I may, President Crowell, since I have the press release that has just gone out to all Ohio press, I just want to point out a couple statements that were made in this press release by this group. The first one is from Columbus Mayor Andrew Ginther. And it basically says, there are legitimate challenges confronting communities in Ohio and across the country. And our leaders can either be a part of the solution or they can be a part of the problem. Mayors put our cities before politics, and I commend Mayor Rue for his sober and focused leadership. Cities like Springfield need cooperation at all levels of government, and we will continue to work with the state and federal officials to keep our residents safe, healthy, and housed. Mayors across America will continue to stand by Springfield and all cities working to responsibly address an increased number of migrants, which we can do without losing sight of our shared humanity. I was quoted in this as well and would like to share. We met with Mayor Rue today to offer our support, learn more about the situation in Springfield, and bring understanding, a better understanding to what other help can be provided to the community and others dealing with similar challenges. No matter the circumstances, terrorizing a community with bomb threats or false and inflammatory rhetoric has no place here or anywhere else. We will do whatever we can to support the mayor, and I'm paraphrasing off of this, of Springfield and their community. We had many conversations about how stretched thin they are with their police department and fire department having to respond at a volume, even though they have a much larger police department, the volume of calls that they're receiving is, to me, was truly shocking. And I can only imagine what the amount of overtime that their staff is having to put in to make sure they are fully staffed to respond to each and every one of those calls. One of the things that the mayors came together and said that we would be more than willing to do is work through MOUs to where, if we can, that we can help and assist with law enforcement in their community with some of our own law enforcement officers, if we have the ability to do so. I feel the same way about their fire department program in Springfield, because they too are being stretched thin, not to mention code and others, as you guys could imagine. That their overtime right now in that city, because of what they're having to manage right now with disinformation, not misinformation. Misinformation is a mistaken information that goes out. Disinformation is basically a lie. And so if we can be supportive of Springfield, and for that matter, any other community that finds themselves in this situation moving forward in time, which wouldn't surprise me in the least, that we lean in and be there for them as well. Cities protect other cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Comment?
As the mayor was listing the names, fellow elected officials across the state of Ohio, there was one name that stuck out very conspicuously. There'll be some people that say this is a partisan proclamation. But because the name of former Governor Bob Taft was mentioned, I don't think it is. It's a humanitarian statement that crosses all parties, all political lines. And to see a former governor from a distinguished family, governors, senators in this state, join with this group of mayors to lend his support at the ripe old age of 82 is quite a statement of how powerful and important this is. And Mayor, I'm glad that you included his name, because without that, it could be grossly misinterpreted, as many things that come before this council are. So thank you for going there, and thank you for including former Governor Taft in this initiative.
Other comments? Law Director Eliason, any report? Treasurer Thomas? I believe that's all of our elected officials in the House. We will now move on to ordinances for third reading. I welcome our neighbors from Ohio University here tonight. And I will just explain that ordinances go through council in the regular procedure 3 times. And at third reading is the time that we are able to vote to approve or not to approve any given ordinance. So you will see that process here for about a dozen ordinances. And then we will go to second reading, and it's a little bit quicker at second and first reading because we're not going through that approval process. Ordinance 48-24 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 25, Flood Damage Prevention, Chapters 25.01, General Provisions, 25.02, Definitions, 25.03, Administration, 25.04, Use and Development Standards for Flood Hazard Reduction, 25.05, Appeals and Variances, and 25.06, Enforcement, and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember McCary.
Thank you, President Krell. I will read first Section 1, Athens City Code Title 25, Flood Damage Prevention, Chapters 25.01, General Provisions 25.02, Definitions 25.03, Administrations 25.04, Use and Development Standards for Flood Hazard Reduction 25.05, Appeals and Variances, and 25.06, Enforcement are hereby amended to read as attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2 reads that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the health, welfare, and safety of the residents of Athens, Ohio, in order to meet FEMA effective date of September 26th, 2024, and it shall be in full force and effect upon its passage and approval by the mayor. As President Krell indicated, our process has allowed us to read this ordinance for the 3rd time. We previously were informed by our City Safety Services Director that we needed to update our floodplain maps to be in compliance with the federal regulations, and this legislation accomplishes that. So I would like to move that we adopt ordinance 48-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ordinance is approved and passed. Ordinance 77-24 is an ordinance approving the petition, plan, and articles of incorporation of the Athens Regional Energy Special Improvement District Incorporated, and declaring the necessity of acquiring, constructing, and improving certain public improvements in the city of Athens, Ohio, in cooperation with the Athens Regional Energy Special Improvement District Incorporated, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
7724, 7824, and 7924 are all related ordinances, and these involve the building at the corner of Court Street and Union Used to be called Follett's, way back whenever it was called the Lostro Building, back in the 19-teens. It was a car dealership. It's that building, the tall one that's under construction right there at the corner of Court and Union, right across from the entrance to Ohio University. The plan is to put hotels, a hotel possibly long-term stay on the upper floors, and then retail on the bottom or the main floor and possibly down below. It's quite the building. It's a huge building. So what we're doing in 7724 is approving the petition plan and articles of incorporation for this building so that they can participate in what's called a PACE energy program, where through special assessments, they can do things such as solar, new windows, HVAC, to bring that building that's well over 100 years old up to speed, and not only up to speed, to make it energy efficient. So 7724, this council hereby approves the petition, the program plan, and the articles, and substantially the form now on file with the council and the city auditor pursuant to the petition, the program plan, and the articles. The district is hereby created. Mr. President, I move the council approve 7724 this evening.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second for approval. Are there any comments or questions? Yes, Member Clodfelter.
Just one, before we get all into the weeds in this, I just wanted to make it publicly known that this is a program that would allow people to borrow money to make energy efficiency upgrades in a building like they're doing in the Follett's building. So it allows them to tackle really expensive changes, but be able to pay for them over a longer time horizon, like 20 years, and at a reasonable interest rate. And we are setting this up in terms of the ordinances so that you don't just have to be on Court Street if you want to do this to your building. It can be applicable to any building within the city limits of Athens. So if there are any building owners out there who find this interesting and might be wanting to make some really significant energy and efficiency improvements, there's going to be a board established to consider applications for this. And so long-term, your best move to find out more will be to contact that board. But this is so new, it's just happening, that the board is still being appointed. And so now, if no one in the room minds, I think the best bet would be to call the mayor's office and find out how to contact the members of the board, and what the number will be. All those things are still being determined. But this may be an opportunity for more building owners in Athens to make energy efficiency upgrades.
Other council members? City administration, elected officials, any comments? Mayor? Treasurer? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving ordinance 77-24 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ordinance has been approved. Ordinance 78-24 is an ordinance determining to proceed with the acquisition, construction, and improvement of certain public improvements in the city of Athens, Ohio, in cooperation with the Athens Regional Energy Special Improvement District, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
7724, we approved the plan. 7824 allows us to approve proceeding with the acquisition of the equipment needed. And again, that could be anything from solar to new windows. In fact, when you came in today, you may have passed some people out in front of the building or in the hallway, and that was Athens Historic Preservation Committee. And they were meeting today to look at windows so that those windows are consistent with the historical look of the downtown area, the uptown area. Mr. President, I would move that we pass 7824 to approve the acquisition of the necessary energy improvements.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve 78-24. Are there any comments from city council members? City administration? Other elected officials? Our audience members? Yes, please come forward.
Hi, my name is James Blackwell. I live on 49 Central Avenue. I just wanted a point of clarification. This PACE funding is not available for residential building owners. but only for business. Oh, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Member
Yes,
Cloudfelder?
there.
I got excited.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I raised your hopes. I asked that same question when the people in charge of this project were here. They came and spoke to us a couple of weeks ago, and there was a representative who was an expert on the federal PACE funding program for energy efficiency, and he said that typically the projects are like the cost of them is in the 7 digits.
Oh, okay.
But please, but that they have a minimum of 100,000. And I asked, can residential business owners do this, or could people band together and get enough of them together that the improvements would cost 100,000? And unfortunately, they said no. So this doesn't appear, at least at this point, to be a funding mechanism for building owners. But maybe there are other people who could help you if you would like to do something with your building. Rural Action, Half Cap, and the mayor has an idea.
Oh, I just wanted to say that it does include landlords. So this could be a boon for landlords to get more efficient and in the process maybe improve their buildings and lower rents.
Mayor?
Landlords do qualify, but you have, as I understand it, you have to have a certain number of units in that
Yes.
building to qualify.
Yeah.
So it couldn't be a former single-family home that is now carved up into 3 unrelateds who live in that particular house. I can't remember what the actual number was
Yeah.
in terms of its size, but it has to be, it does have a baseline in terms of the number of units in a particular residence.
Yeah.
I would also, there was something else I was going to add. Senior moment. Oh, well, it might come back to me later, and maybe I'll bring it back up again. But this will certainly be helpful. Oh, I know what I was going to say. To your question, something to certainly look into is the Inflation Reduction Act and the renewable tax credits that are embedded within the Inflation Reduction Act, because there might be some help there that would be of interest to you.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else from the audience like to speak to this? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving 78-24 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion has been approved. The ordinance has been approved, excuse me. 79-24 is an ordinance levying special assessments for the purpose of acquiring, constructing, and improving certain public improvements in the city of Athens, Ohio, in cooperation with the Athens Energy Special Improvement District, approving an energy project cooperative agreement and a special assessment agreement, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
7924 deals with the PACE agreement that Member Clodfelter alluded to. Assessments. Before anybody panics, there will be no new taxes on any citizens in the city of Ohio. These are special assessments levied on the property owner to pay back the institution from which these funds come. What this does, it speeds up the process of borrowing the money. It allows the borrower to get it at generally a much better rate and makes it a lot cleaner with the banks. Rather than going through the banks, so they go through the PACE group to do this. Will be repaid over approximately 20-year period, and this piece of legislation will allow them to proceed and move ahead. So I would move that council pass 7924.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve 7924. Are there any comments from council members? Elected officials, city administration, public? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving 79-24 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is approved. 80-24 is an ordinance granting a special right-of-way use permit at 49 Central Avenue for pre-existing patio, stairs, and parking in the city right-of-way, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
8024, Mr. Blackwell, this is your last chance for us to amend this to get that solar on the roof in addition to the right-of-way if you want. Going once? All right. 8024 is pretty straightforward, and again, Mr. Blackwell, I would like to publicly thank you for correctly going through the process. He bought a property within the last 5 years, and it's a pre-existing situation where his patio and his parking spot is in the city right-of-way. If you own a home or you rent a home, your property technically goes to the street, but technically doesn't go to the street. Anywhere from 5 to 25 feet of that property is what's called the city right-of-way, where the city maintains utilities, so on and so forth. You still have to mow it, you still have to shovel your sidewalk, but it is the city right-of-way. Mr. Blackwell went through the process of going to code, filling out the proper paperwork, giving a check to the clerk down there, and then bringing it to council, and thank you for doing that. We appreciate when people follow the process as opposed to jumping ahead and asking for permission later. This would simply allow him to walk out his front steps and go down on the patio legally, and to park in the alley next to his house legally. This has been checked out by everybody. We've looked at pictures, and it's a very, very kosher request. So I would move that we approve 8024, an ordinance granting a special right-of-way use permit at 49 Central Avenue.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second for approval. Are there any comments or questions from council members? City administration, other elected officials, audience? Please, thank you for being here. We appreciate your participation.
I apologize, I'm pretty new at this. So in the event that this does pass, where does it go? And can I get like a copy of it? How would I do that?
You certainly can get a copy of the ordinance. Mayor, I believe this will go back to code, or it just becomes law as soon as we pass it right now?
It'll be, well, 30
With our
days after
signatures.
signing by
Yes.
you, clerk of council, and myself.
Okay.
So you still have a 30-day wait afterwards, which is built in so that someone in the rare occasion comes back and goes, I don't know that I like that, or whatever. But 30 days after we sign it into law, you have permission to do what you have set out to do on your property.
Oh, thank you.
And I'll be sure to send you a copy of it.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Okay, ordinance 81-24 is an ordinance affirming the Service Safety Director's execution of easements with the state of Ohio necessary for the construction of city sewer system improvements, project number 330, introduced by Councilmember McCary. Sorry. Oh, my fault. Thank you, I got thrown off. Thank goodness you're here,
Well, on second thought,
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval. If there are no more comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. It is approved. Okay, ordinance 81-24 is an ordinance affirming the Service Safety Director's execution of easements with the state of Ohio necessary for the construction of city sewer improvements, project number 330, introduced by Councilmember McCary.
Thank you, President Crowell. Such ordinances aren't the most exciting, but they're necessary, especially when we're expanding and improving on our sewer system. So Section 1 reads that Athens City Council does hereby affirm the Service Safety Director's execution of easements with the state of Ohio necessary for the construction of city sewer system improvements we refer to as project number 330 as follows. 15 years commencing on June 1st, 2024 and expiring on May 31st, 2039 on behalf of the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. 25 years commencing on June 1st, 2024 and expiring on May 31st, 2049. File number 8913. Copies of said easements are attached hereto and incorporated herein for reference. And Section 2 indicates that this ordinance shall be in effect and full force upon its passage and approval by the mayor. So this ordinance is being read for the third time and is really just a formality of approving access to any of the homes and properties that we are potentially impacting with these sewer improvements, project number 330. So I would move that we adopt ordinance 81-24.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second for approval. Are there any comments or questions from council members? Seeing none, are there other elected officials or city administration? Audience members. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We now move on to ordinances for second reading. All of these ordinances start in committee, and so they are first introduced and discussed and commented on in committee. Then they are read the first time at the following general business meeting. And then at the second reading, which is what we are about to do tonight, I just read the titles of the ordinances. We don't go into each committee chair and into the process that you've just witnessed. But there is an opportunity for anybody to speak after I read the title. So I will pause and see if anybody would like to speak. Please just rise and come to the podium if you'd like to speak. And then we'll move through all of the second readings. Ordinance 84-24 is an ordinance amending the 2024 appropriation ordinance 130-23 and authorizing an interfund transfer, introduced by Councilmember Reisner. Ordinance 86-24 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an employment agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, Local 24031, concerning wages and working conditions, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Ordinance 87-24 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 21, Subdivision Regulations, Chapters 21.03, Application Procedure for Subdivision Approval, 21.04, Design and Construction Standards, and 21.10 Hillside Regulations, introduced by Councilmember Swank. Ordinance 88-24 is an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 23, Zoning, Chapter 23.03, General Regulations and Permitted Modifications, Sections 23.03.08C, Yard Regulations, and 23.03.14, Fences, Walls, Terraces, and Stoops, and Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls, introduced by Councilmember Swank. Ordinance 89-24 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an annexation agreement with the Athens Township trustees for property located east of Cable Lane, introduced by Councilmember Swank. Ordinance 90-24 is an ordinance amending Title VII Traffic Code, Sections 7.02.11, 7.02.17, 7.02.23, 7.03.07, 7.03.07.1, 7.03.25, 7.04.58, and 7.05.31, and repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith, introduced by all members of council. Ordinance 91-24 is an ordinance amending Title 13 General Offenses, Sections 13.02.04, 13.03.01, 13.05.01, 13.05.08, and 13.05.13, and repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith, introduced by all members of council. Ordinance 92-24 is an ordinance amending the 2024 appropriation ordinance 130-23, introduced by Councilmember Reisner. Ordinance 93-24 is an ordinance amending ordinances 74-21, 116-22, and 36-24, authorizing Athens Uptown Designated Outdoor Refreshment Area, DORA, hours of operation, introduced by Councilmember Thomas. Yes, Member McCary.
Thank you, President Crowell. I was wondering if the mayor might be able to provide us with an update on the meetings of the Tavern Owner Association, I believe is what they might be calling themselves, and if they have had any reaction to the latest format of the DORA ordinance.
I was hoping you were going to ask something else, but
I can answer that one.
Andrew Chicky, Deputy Service Safety Director, meets with the Bar Owners Association and engages with them on a number of issues. If Councilmember Swank, if you've got an answer to that, I can imagine with this revision, so the amendment that was made to this particular legislation, because before, if you recall, it had homecoming weekend in there as well as mom's weekend, and those have been removed. So this is just referencing graduation weekend. And so I haven't heard anything from the bar owners about graduation weekend. I'm sure that they're okay with that happening. I mean, they're the beneficiaries of being able to get cups out the door, but I'd like to come back and make another comment.
I spoke with members of that organization last week. They did not have an official meeting, but in informal conversations. Essentially, they came to the conclusion, and the mayor's going to speak to one in terms of Ohio University. If Ohio University was good with it, the city felt they could control it properly. It's just adding 3 days to the front end of the period, and therefore had no issue with it.
Okay. Mr. Reed.
Thank you. I did hear the conversation loud and clear from council at the dais at the last meeting, and that being for me to speak to council about my meeting that I have. Just bear in mind that the meeting that I do have every month with the president of the university is between the president of the university and myself. It's a closed meeting. It's the chance that we get, as I have with 3 previous administrations, to talk about a sundry of different issues. We did talk about having the graduation weekend as being a DORA weekend, to where the DORA would go live at noon on the Friday. Like all the other DORAs, it stops at 11 p.m., starts the next day at noon, stops at 11 p.m., then starts on Sunday, and so on and so forth. That's the schedule. I think we're all well aware of that, and that was something that I don't think was thoroughly understood about the way a DORA operates. And at the end of the day, President Lori Stewart Gonzalez was fine with graduation weekend being included as a DORA weekend. There was other comments that were made that I do want to at least address at this point in time, and that being that for years now, and certainly throughout my administration, which started in 2016, January of, is yes, Ohio University has done a lot to dispel the party culture of the university. But I also would like to remind council, the city administration did as well. We were very effective in changing some of the culture with the fest season, and feel that we have a much safer environment for Millfest, Highfest, and Palmerfest, as well as now the city is the entity that basically manages the Halloween block party, which was another event that was part of the myth, the lore, the lure, whatever you want to call it, of what was Athens of yesteryear. So the city has really leaned in to be a true partner. And so this was another attempt at doing that from a fire safety standpoint, but again, finding a great way of having a level of compromise to landing on graduation weekend as opposed to what was the previous unamended, the previous ordinance that was amended to where it had the 2 other events that were included in there, but we felt it's fine to remove those 2.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have, that's the final of our second readings. So is there any comment from the public on the DORA? Okay, moving on to ordinances
I've
for,
got one in the back.
oh yes, please. So just tell us your name and your address and whether you represent a group or not.
Okay, my name's Anthony Bray. I live on 15 Elliott Street. I'm just a student here. I don't represent any type of organization. I was wondering, you mentioned that the original ordinance had included homecoming weekend and mom's weekend, and that you compromised by removing those two and adding or expanding the Dora season to grad weekend. What were some of like the main concerns you had with homecoming weekend and mom's weekend, and the differences between those weekends and grad weekend?
Yeah, it was a fruitful conversation to be had for sure, and a lot of it surrounded the ability for the number of officers that we have, both Ohio University and the City of Athens officers that we have on homecoming weekends. Homecoming weekend is a high density weekend here in the City of Athens, to where we have hundreds, if not thousands, of alum that come back. I would probably have to say thousands. I don't know what the actual number is. We felt that this would not necessarily help the environment of the uptown area for that particular event. The Mom's Weekend as well, to where, while the thought was to try to offload the number of people in the bars themselves, in return, though, it will just end up adding a lot more people on the street, which is where our police officers have to patrol and maintain and work for the welfare and the safety of the City of Athens. And it would have been extremely challenging in order to do that, given the number of people who also come in for Mom's Weekend.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you for that. We now move on to ordinances for first reading. We have one ordinance, 94-24. Is an ordinance amending the 2024 appropriation ordinance 130-23, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Allow me to read 94-24 for the first time. Be it ordained by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio, Section 1, the 2024 appropriation ordinance 130-23 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the following sums: $24,294 to Street Fund 220, Transaction Code 500, Grant Award for H2 Ohio Rivers Initiative Chloride Reduction, and $15,000 to Community Center Fund 271, Transaction Code 500, for the elevator pit repairs and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Reisner. Any questions or comments on ordinance 94-24? Yes, Member Swank.
I may have forgotten, I don't recall seeing this in committee, so I've got a couple of questions about each one. I take it from the first one, we received a grant?
Is that H2 Ohio?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And what exactly is chloride reduction? Chemistry wasn't my strength.
I will have to get back to you on that.
Sorry, yeah, we
It's okay.
we have a couple more readings.
I
We
think
do.
I can take a stab at that.
Okay.
Right now, with our wastewater, in order to kill a lot of the more gross pathogens, we use chlorine, which of course is a toxic chemical that goes into the rivers and eventually goes to somebody, somewhere downstream. So part of the initiative is to eliminate chlorine and replace it with more environmentally safe methods like ultraviolet light. So to do that, well, that means a complete rebuilding of the equipment. You've got to get rid of all the chlorination pumps and so on and replace it with high voltage electric and so on. So it's going to cost some money to do that. But basically the federal EPA is mandating this.
The second question deals with the elevator pit. Is the elevator to Rec Center, Community Center not working, or is it in danger of not working?
I don't even want to say that. It
Okay.
needs to have repairs in that pit. They identified a fair amount of moisture inside the elevator shaft pit, which is, below grade, obviously. And so we'll take on a lot of that work ourselves, to where we have a way of cleaning things up down in that pit, but it's transferring the money in order to do that. And then I believe that a lot of our staff will be also applying basically an epoxy epoxy paint that is a weatherproofing paint that'll go inside that pit as well and should correct the problem of any water buildup or condensation that's down there. So it's preventative for something that we identified that there was minimal rusting of a few screw heads down there, but given it's an elevator, we need to really make sure that we can address all that and get it taken care of.
To your last point, if that elevator were to become inoperable tomorrow, that would preclude a lot of people from taking advantage of the track upstairs. Would it be advantageous for us to consider suspending the rules tonight to speed it up as we get closer to colder weather? Because as it is now, we go the full 3 readings, this won't pass until the 3rd week in October.
I would suggest, if anything, maybe suspending on second reading. I don't see a need tonight. As I indicated, it's basically some screw heads down in that pit that have nothing to do with the functionality of the elevator system, nor is it a critical feature that could lead to something catastrophic happening with the elevator. I appreciate your concern. I would have the same concern. I would absolutely be asking to suspend if we recognize that this is something that we have got to get done like yesterday. But that's not the case with the pit right now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, 94-24 has been read for the first time. We now move on to a resolution for second reading, and at second reading, I will read the title. Resolution 06-24 is a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor, introduced by Councilmember Reisner. Seeing no comments or questions on Resolution 06-24, we will move on to announcements and other business. First item under this section is to confirm the mayor's appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals. We have the bio of Mr. Shay Myers, and the mayor would like to add him to the Board of Zoning Appeals as an alternate. And this would mean that the current alternate, Mr. Paul Isherwood, would move up to be a regular member of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Do I have that correct, Mayor?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Any comments or questions on Mr. Shay Myers, who also serves the city of Athens? Yes, Member Spellis.
Yes, I got to know Shay Myers about a year or so ago. He and his wife have a business here in town, as he's an architect. His wife's a designer. And he has been serving this year on the Affordable Housing Commission. He's been really a great contributor to information about that he knows based on his skills as an architect. So I think he'd be a great addition, and I heartily hope that he is going to be confirmed.
Would that be a motion for
Oh,
confirming?
I guess I'll do that.
Okay.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to confirm the mayor's appointment of Mr. Shay Myers to the Board of Zoning Appeals. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Congratulations, Mr. Myers and Mr. Isherwood. May I now have a motion to accept the August 2024 financial reports?
So moved.
Question or comment?
Oh, sorry, Mayor.
I believe the previous motion that was made also included 2 individuals who are being reappointed. Was that information that you had received?
So that, I saw that in the title, but I didn't receive who these were or any information. Did you have those names?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Mr. Ben Lockman is up for renewal, or in October, but I went ahead and asked if he would consider continuing on. He said yes. And the other is Joe Kraus. Mr. Joe Kraus has been serving on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and he has requested to be reinstated or to continue on a reappointment onto the BZA.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. May I have a motion to reappoint Mr. Ben Lockman and Mr. Joe Kraus to the Board of Zoning Appeals?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments about Yes, Mr. Swin.
Because those weren't in the packet, can we put those off to the next meeting?
I'm comfortable going through this tonight. Are you asking for a,
I have concerns concerning one of the appointment, as do significant number of members of the community. And had we known those were going to be on tonight, they could have been here to speak to that. And because it wasn't on there, they didn't know it was going to happen.
I will accept that. If council,
May I
yes,
ask you a question?
please.
Where was that originally? Was it, I don't see it on the agenda.
It's under announcements and other business, the first item.
It says confirm the mayor's appointment and reappointments to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So, did council receive resumes for the others?
We received a short bio for the appointment of Mr. Shea Myers, but I do not believe we received information about Mr. Lockman or Mr. Kraus. I don't have it anyway unless anybody else saw that.
I never saw a bio for Shay.
Yeah, that was what I responded to you early this evening. I just sent it to you. It wasn't in our packet, but I did forward it to all council members.
But when I required from the clerk, she just forwarded the name, no bio.
Yeah, so I sent it to you. So if you look in your email, I have sent it to you.
Again, I would like to put this off till next meeting.
You understand?
Okay, so we've had a motion, is that right?
We had a motion and a second
vote.
to approve and a vote for Mr. Shea Myers, but
Right,
not for the
Mr.
reappointments.
Lockman and Joe Kraus.
Correct.
Right.
Those two, we've already voted on, the previous two, Mr. Myers and.
Mr. Isherwood.
Right. But there hasn't been a vote yet on Mr. Lockman and Mr. Kraus, just a motion and a second, is that right? Do we have those motions and seconds?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, well, we have a choice here, we could go ahead and vote on that, or the person making the motion could withdraw their motion.
My motion was for Shea Myers alone, because I
That's
thought, correct, that was the only name. I don't want to remove that.
No, of course not, I'm just saying for the two, Mr. Lockman and Mr. Kraus, because you already had a vote on those. But I didn't write it down, I usually write it down, but I didn't write down if there was a motion and a second.
There was.
Mayor?
Since I identified the error, because if you read the title of this, it does say appointment and reappointments, plural, and did get confirmation from those two individuals that we can certainly table this until the next regular session and bring it forward. It is not typical that I request updated vitas from anybody who is being reappointed, because there was an original vita that was included within their initial appointment. I can certainly find that and send that on to council members. But again, I'm not going to start a set of new precedents to where anyone who's being reappointed who I've been observing over the course of X number of years to require them to have an updated vita for the work that they've been doing.
So
I understand, yeah, it's a procedural question right now, I believe, Law
So the
Director.
procedural question is, probably the best is if members might wants to make a motion to table it.
That's the easiest I would move, unless they want to withdraw their motion, wouldn't that be
I
easier?
believe it came from this side of the dais, but I'm not sure.
Well,
You did the original Shea Myers, but then there was the second two after the mayor brought it up, and we had a motion and a second that I thought came from this one,
I
but I'm not
seconded.
sure.
I'm not sure who motioned.
And we
Okay, this
voted
is where
on it.
we miss our clerk. But
Right,
Yeah.
I didn't, right?
You have voted on the approval of Shea Myers to
Correct.
serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals. You did not vote,
Correct.
nor have discussion about the two individuals. It was me who made the correction to where there was supposed to be the two reappointments within your package. It's clear that it's not there. We will fix that, and I don't know, I suggested tabling. There was no vote on this one. I don't even recall who made the motion and who said
I
second.
think the cleanest way to do it is a motion to table.
I would move that we table the approval of the mayor's reappointments until the next regular business meeting.
And specifically, those are reappointments of Ben Lockman and Joe Kraus.
Yes.
And you'll need a second if we're going to have that.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table the reappointment of Mr. Ben Lockman and Mr. Joe Kraus to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Is there any discussion on this motion to table?
President Krell?
Yes, Member McCary.
Thank you. In part for the benefit of our audience, but also just for general education, we do have many boards and commissions in the city of Athens, some appointed by the mayor, some appointed by city council. In this case, the mayor works so closely with this commission, I think it'd be helpful to hear about general priorities or what you're looking for in commission members.
I would, so the way my administration is addressing a lot of this now, it's kind of, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me to sit in my office and go through my mental Rolodex to sit there and go, who should I appoint? Who would I ask to appoint? So to that point, the Rec Advisory Board comes forward with a slate. If there's one replacement, if there's two people who have termed out, if there's more, they come forward with a slate. The commission, the Disabilities Commission does the same thing to where they identify individuals and then bring that slate to me, and then I either approve the slate or partially approve the slate or say no, which I've never said no. And so with the Commission on Disabilities, and I really appreciate, and I'm glad that Mr. Davey McNally is here with us tonight, who is the co-chair for the Commission on Disabilities, is they look to see if they can have a broad bench in terms of those who are serving on the Board of Zoning Appeals, on the Disabilities Commission, to where they're hearing the voices of various individuals living various lives. The Rec Advisory Board is the same, looking to see, where are we void of having the voice of some activity, and that's pretty broad if you think about it, but whatever that activity might be, or we have yet to have someone who is in the child care sector on the Rec Advisory Board, at least not that I remember in my years of being involved. Board of Zoning Appeals, to that board unto itself, I've been pretty deliberate in looking to see that we have, again, breadth across the dais with those who are serving on the Board of Zoning Appeals. I look at the same thing when it comes to the Shade Tree Commission, and a lot of times I lean on the Shade Tree Commission to see if there's someone that doesn't come to mind for me, who would be an effective member on the Shade Tree Commission who's looking at things from a different dynamic. I know we've had arborists on there before, master gardeners, a number of different people, and I think that's the way that committee should be constituted. I think over time, and Councilmember Spalness, you can school me if I'm wrong on this, but the Affordable Housing Commission has a really interesting dynamic of individuals, and I'm sorry that I stole Shave away from you, but hey, mayors do that. It's effective in terms of knowing what your blind spots are when you're sitting in one particular seat and recognizing, oh, why don't I have somebody who is a developer? Why don't I have someone who's in the financial sector on this board? So it's a great question, McCary, because it's. I would say we try as best we can to constitute diverse boards and commissions, as well as expertise that are sitting in some of those seats. I think the Environment Sustainability Commission, President Crowell, I've seen the makeup, the constitution of that particular board. And again, it has individuals with varying skill sets, which at the end of the day, for our 20 some odd boards and commissions, we have a lot of boards and commissions that I believe we've done a pretty good job of being able to find candidates with diverse backgrounds to serve on those boards and commissions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a motion and a second to table the reappointment of Mr. Lockman and Mr. Kraus. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion has carried, and the reappointment of Mr. Lockman and Mr. Kraus has been tabled. Now, may I have a motion to accept the August 2024 financial reports?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The August reports are approved. May I have a motion to accept the July 2024 credit card transactions?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve those transactions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. 24 credit card transactions have been approved. We now have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services not covered on tonight's agenda. I know we have one esteemed speaker. If Mr. McNally would like to come forward, if you'd like to come over to the table, we've a spot for you there. We appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Okay, how's that? Can everyone hear me okay?
Great.
Kind of tinny, but okay. And I think we have some printouts maybe to pass out. Michelle is also on our commission. Michelle Hahn's going to just kind of pass out some papers to kind of be passed around as to what I'm talking about. My name is Davey McNally. I've been serving as the chair of the Disability Commission for about 5 years now, and have been on the Disability Commission for about 8 years, if I had to guess. I live in Millfield, Ohio, 10202 Millfield, or Alderman Road in Millfield, Ohio. You know, when I was moving to Athens, I tried to find affordable and accessible housing in Athens and couldn't do it. So I was able to locate a house that served my needs. So I want to start off by saying I would rather not be here tonight. I know a lot of people here really enjoy city government. I do too, but I don't think I'd want to be coming to a city council meeting. I'd rather be at my kid's soccer game. I'd rather be just enjoying a night after a long Monday. But I feel the need to come here and to speak on some real failures for the city of Athens to make the city of Athens just basically ADA accessible. I'm not a confrontational person generally. I try and work with people to try and get things done. But I feel, and I make this joke every year at the Walk, Talk, and Roll for those who are there, I feel like I'm hitting my head on a brick, like with getting accessibility done. And I think a lot of people with disabilities feel the same way. Yeah, and I don't say the word failure lightly. I say it because it seems like a systematic failure of what's happening right now. And this is to abide by ADA regulations. ADA regulations aren't a choice. You can't say, oh, especially on a city street or a city crosswalk, you can't say, oh, it's historic, I'm not going to fix this, I'm not going to make this right. It has to be done. I want to use an example. I think you'll see it in some of the pictures that were attached tonight. Right, Michelle? Okay, good. Of the crosswalk done on Court and Union. It was redone about 6 years ago, and as it was being done, I don't think there were curb cuts even put in at first. So I, called and texted EPW and Steve to say, hey, this isn't right. The curb cuts were put in that were not ADA, did not meet ADA guidelines, and they're just dangerous. They're dangerous, and every year we do our year-end report where we say, hey, here's what the priorities are. We do the Walk, Talk, and Roll uptown every year. We say, hey, this is like a danger. And we show by bringing a wheelchair and trying to get over it. I get stuck on that crosswalk at least once a month. I've heard reports this week of someone using a wheelchair falling out from hitting that curb cut that's not meeting ADA requirements. I'm hearing that people with disabilities, as I've heard consistently, do not come uptown because it's not accessible. So I'm embarrassed to have people who disabled friends come to the city of Athens and come uptown. I've had friends trip and fall crossing this particular curb cut as well. So it's not a historic issue either. This is a current systemic failure that's happening in the city of Athens. And again, I don't use those words lightly. I think things are slipping through the cracks, and we need to address this. And yeah, especially the last person who said they were pushing their kid and hit one of these a curb cut should be like, a quarter inch or less. A lot of the curb cuts uptown, especially these curb cuts, are an inch or more. So I literally get stuck half of my wheelchair out in the street consistently on these. So yeah, I think I've kind of explained this. What have we done to address it? I talked about some of the ways. I talked about having personal conversations. We have an accessibility and advocacy committee. We met with EPW numerous times about this particular issue. We have a matrix that lists our top priority. We worked with the pedestrian accessibility ad hoc committee to develop the matrix of concerns, and that's really the top concern. I know that there's a big, grant that's supposed to really fix this. It's been not being able to find a contractor 2 or 3 years in a row. The issue is there. And if we don't have a city budget that's identified and have a plan for fixing this, then it's not going to happen. So I don't want to be like all doom and gloom either. Like the city has, as you know, made some major improvements. Stimson Avenue, from being nearly impassable, is now completely passable. It was done pretty well. It was done well. We worked really well with EPW and the city to do that. The grinding of some of the sidewalks uptown, that was great. That was put into effect. The matching grant that was done last year was really beneficial, enabled some businesses uptown to become accessible and throughout the city. So that was not in the city budget this year. I think that was part of like kind of discretionary fund. So those things were good. So what do we need? We need to fix these major issues now. We can't wait on the grants. We need to put the money aside to fix uptown's curb cuts and crosswalks. The most major crosswalk intersection is Court and Union, and it's dangerous. I know we've demonstrated that lots of times. We have videos. You can pull up our Facebook page and look at some of those videos if you'd like. It's, again, dangerous. Let's fix that. We asked not just for a resolution, but for legislation by City Council to ask City Administration to have a 10-year plan to say, hey, we recognize the issues. Here's how we're going to get them done, okay? Because we need to have an actual plan. I think that could be the ADA transition plan. Again, this was part of 1990, part of the 1990 ADA. We still don't have one for the city of Athens. We need to get this done. We need to have a plan. Third, to have a process within the city administration. We need to have a person who really prioritizes the ADA and making sure it happens. Even when we bring this up, it doesn't necessarily happen. On the construction that's happening on Union, there should be an accessible pathway to get to those businesses. We brought this up numerous times throughout the construction. There is not an accessible path to get there. I can't walk anywhere in that area. And then, we'd like for that one-time kind of discretionary grant that happened last year for the matching funds, because a lot of businesses were made accessible. We'd like that to kind of go into this year's budget. It was just $30,000 of matching funds. I think it greatly improved. I think it went above and beyond just that, because it raised awareness. It did lots of other things. So we'd like to see not just a resolution, but legislation to put that into this year's city budget. So that's what I wanted to say. Any questions for me right now? And that's about as angry as I get.
Member McCary, please.
Thank you for coming as chair of our Commission on Disabilities. I serve as City Council's liaison to that commission and have observed some of the conversations and frustrations and amazing advocacy and planning that this group has done. So I just wanted to invite Davey to clarify why you're coming before council this evening to ask for this resolution when typically these sort of projects are administrative. Sure,
I want to make the community aware about what's happening right now. I think we're at the point right now where I think it really centers around uptown and just pathways during construction, a couple other points, because we just aren't getting this done. We're trying to work, I think, and I do, want to acknowledge work where it's been done, but these are some major issues that are an embarrassment, and we feel like, and I think I've said this out loud too, we just feel like, do we need to sue the city under the ADA? Do we need to do direct action? Like what's the next step for us to get these things done? So that's why we're here before city council tonight.
Yeah, Member Swank.
In your conversations with our recently hired DEIA coordinator, what has come out of those conversations?
Sure. So one major obstacle to that is the DEIA coordinator has not been able to consistently come to any of our meetings because they conflict with other things in her schedule. So we just haven't had a great communication. We have asked Mayor Patterson to have some other, mayor's designee to come to the meetings. Yeah, we'd like more emphasis on that.
And you meet once a month?
We meet once a month on the third Wednesday of every month. We have an accessibility and advocacy meeting that meets here on the bottom floor at noon on the second Fridays. We also have an education and outreach committee.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any comments? Yes, would you like to?
Hi, I'm Michelle Hahn. I live at 774 West Union, apartment 13. I wanted to talk a little bit about mandating. Mr. Reisner mentioned that the federal EPA has a mandate for the chlorine mitigation project. Well, in case you've never heard of it, the United States Department of Justice, another federal entity, mandates that transition plan, mandated in the 1990 ADA. It is a requirement by law, and we don't have it. That means we're going against the law there. The ADA was signed in 1990. That's 34 years we've been out of compliance. 1991, they wrote the standards for design. The curb cuts at Union and Court Street, out of compliance against the law. 2010, they updated those, made them enforceable. So now the U.S. Department of Justice can come down on the city of Athens just because it hasn't bothered to make those curb cuts, make those crosswalks, do any of the requirements by the law that has been there for 34 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments tonight? Thank you, Mr. McNally, for coming tonight. Oh, yes, please.
Good evening, I'm Stephanie Hunter. I live at 204 Almond Place. I am here speaking for myself in this case, but about the sidewalks in Athens. So I'm currently a grad student in city and regional planning, minoring in policy. And so one of the things I just did was wrote a paper about the sidewalk policy of Athens, Ohio. So as you know, I've been here before you a few times about the 2023 sidewalk accessibility report, and I am part of the pedestrian accessibility and bicycle committee, or sorry, yeah, we are a task force. And so I wanted to tell you about this paper because I think it really matters to this council. I'm going to summarize it. Athens sidewalk legislation and policy, it's not working, it's not going to work, and as far as I can tell, it was never intended to work. So I want to talk about what a sidewalk is first. It's a tiny grade separated road for pedestrians parallel to the bigger road for vehicles. In the olden days, it came about so people could avoid horse flops. These days it exists so people can walk around without worrying about being hit by cars. And it's a road for people, it's a road. The 1962 legislation in the Ohio Revised Code, which calls for property owners to build these tiny roads for the government, makes no sense on any level. If people decide not to do it, the process to enforce the law isn't manageable. I've heard that directly from Director Riggs several times now. One of the major problems of this legislation is it isn't funded. Sidewalks cost about $200 per linear foot to build the absolute minimum 5 foot wide, 4-inch thick, ADA compliant sidewalk. So I have 60 feet of frontage. That's $12,000 if I have to pay someone to do it, and that's $5,000 in concrete alone, even if I can do it myself. That's a lot of money. So even if code office starts enforcing the laws as written, it suddenly has a bunch of angry property owners who can band together in a special interest group and say, no, we don't want to against the city. And this is called, are you ready for it? Special interest group politics, where the group is pitted against the city because the special interest group is paying the cost for everyone to get the benefit. The style of politics usually comes up with stuff like food safety regulations or pollution controls. Sidewalks should not be special interest group politics. They should be majoritarian politics. That's when we would all shoulder the cost because we all get the benefit, and that makes sense with a sidewalk, right? But that's not what Ohio Revised Code says. So let's say we actually enforce the sidewalk code as written. Code office sent out those thousands of notices. Every property owner in the city built or repaired their sidewalks. Great, right? No. And this is why I say I truly don't believe this law was ever intended to build sidewalks, because even if people follow it, you're not going to get a good product. What you get is thousands of different little teeny sidewalks, and good luck enforcing any standard on them. Because, and I repeat this, the legislation is unmanageable, it's unfunded, it relies on people to do something they're not naturally inclined to do, it's not coercive enough to make the goal happen, and even if it does happen, you don't get a high quality sidewalk network out of it. You just won't, and that leaves the city with a couple of options. One, we can do what the city's already doing. So in policy analysis, whatever a city does or does not do is its policy. So currently Athens city policy on sidewalks is to ask no one to pay for them, shoulder the work when it can get the grants, which are a huge amount of work to secure. And because there isn't actually a great template in the city beyond ADA compliant, we get like half a mile of new sidewalks a year. So, which means every sidewalk in Athens will be fixed in about 76 years, by which time we will all be dead. Or we could pass a levy, put in a line item, make that 10-year plan, enforce space as a standard, and actually get some results. Be ADA compliant, make it a citywide cost for a citywide benefit for all of us. We do this with roads for cars. Why shouldn't we do it with roads for people? Let's be the city we say we are. Let's be a city for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments tonight from the public?
My name is Charlie James. I live at 51 Mill Street. I'm not part of any organization. I'm just here as a student. One issue I did want to address with the council and mayor is the issue of homelessness here in Athens, especially up towards the middle school on West State Street. I know a couple, at least friends of mine, have had run-ins with homelessness up there, and they have not gone as far as to secure a restraining order. They've been throwing around an idea because they have been intruding on public property. I don't know if there's any vandalism that's been happening. I'm not going to go so far as to accuse anybody of that. But it is an issue that's happening right now, and I was doing a little bit of research before to understand kind of the trend of homelessness in Athens, and based on the PIT report from 2023, it says that there were 77 unsheltered homeless people in Athens in 2022. That number, as of 2023, is now 177. So I just wanted to get thoughts from council and from Mr. Mayor about any thoughts you guys want to have on that issue and what's being done to kind of prevent further spread of something like this happening?
Can I ask the gentleman a question?
Will you take a question? Normally, just so you
sure.
know, comments from the public is not a conversation. We're not necessarily going to respond, but if somebody would like to, they're certainly welcome to.
Yeah, you mentioned West State Street up towards the middle school. From your I'm on the far east side, so I'm not up in that area very often, except to drop off a grandchild from time to time. But you mentioned the middle school. From your observation, what time of day are the issues most prevalent?
I would say majority of the time it is at night, not while school is in session. But it is, so if you're walking up West State, and you cut through by the middle school, there's like kind of a little drop off down the hill. That's where the majority of, at least my experience has been.
On the back side of the?
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be Washington Street.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Member Spelms?
Yeah, I think it's important to mention that the Athens County Foundation is very well aware of the homelessness issue, and there's a group of approximately 90-plus people who are working on this issue right now. I am part of that coalition of folks who are working on it. We are a few months into it. We're not going to solve the problems overnight, and we realize that it's increasing, but there is like I said, a giant group of folks who recognize it is a big problem and are trying to find multiple solutions to it. So thank you for coming forward.
Hi, I'm Allie Hughes, and I currently reside at 3 Blair Court in Nelsonville. And I'll say that perhaps I represent the Disability Commission as secretary member and here to support Davey McNally et al. That are making comments tonight on disability. I'd like to let you all know a little bit of history behind how I ended up in Athens, Ohio. I came here from Boston, and before that Texas, and before that even farther north up in Ohio. But what I've seen here is a lack of accessibility. Obviously, there are other places that have that as more of a, more money behind it, more words behind the things and actions behind the things that we really need. But I'm seeing less and less action here. I joined Athens in 2021 when I was recruited to work at OUHCOM as an assistant professor. I'm a psychologist by training. And as my husband and I joined the community, we were really impressed. We all know that Athens is great. But what we were taken back by was the terrible rental situation, horrible walking paths around our neighborhood, and housing overall, whether it be purchasing, rentals, it's terrible. I know these are things that council brings up and has citizens discussing frequently in these meetings. But because we were sick of being bullied by our rental unit landlord, also common here, we bought a house in Nelsonville because there was not a single accessible house for my husband, who's a disabled veteran. He went to Iraq twice. And I too am disabled, but my disabilities are a little more invisible than my husband's, who walks with a mobility device. And my husband and I would love to live in Athens. You wouldn't believe how often we talk about it. My God, we would love to live in Athens. But where are we going to find a single-family ranch-style home that's accessible for someone with mobility issues? We're not going to find it here. And that's really distressing. Don't get me started on affordability. So what I'm saying here in the grand scheme of things is affordability, accessibility, disabilities in general are very expensive, and we have some huge problems here in Athens. And all I'm asking for is really the bare minimum. I want to be able to walk with my husband on Court Street and not have his walking stick get stuck in the sidewalk, for God's sake. I want to be able to just go to Donkey with him and not have to worry that, he's going to lose his space or, have any mobility issues. There's no reason that I shouldn't be able to have that with him. And so, as I said, I'm really asking the bare minimum. And as I said, I would love to move to Athens again. But at this point in time, it's just not going to happen. So, as my dear friend Michelle stated, we've been waiting for 34 years for ADA compliance here, and I really think the time is now. So, thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Go for it, Davey.
Yeah, is this okay? Okay, yeah, one other thing that I think we in the Disability Commission were pretty disappointed by, Ally was talking about housing, the project on University Estates that was originally pitched to us as an affordable and accessible housing units ended up not being either. So I think that was something that people on the commission worked for and were excited about. And then when it was presented, it was neither. And I think that's something that, you know, and we talked to the developers. They came to a commission meeting and we said, hey, can at least a few of these units be accessible? And they said, no, all of them are going to be 2 levels. And we were like, well, this has not really anything to do with us, then we're not going to support this. So I'm still kind of surprised about using the TIF funding. I know the TIF funding changed into some other kind of funding, but I was just surprised still that we didn't hold to making at least some affordable, accessible housing in the city of Athens. That's
Thank you.
my last comment.
Okay, we will have committee meetings next Monday night, so if committee chairs have any items they want to bring forward, they should notify the clerk of council by Wednesday. Are there any other announcements or other business from council or city administration? Okay, I would take a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. We are adjourned at 8:37 PM.